Good evening and salutations, my Days of Lost fans. So, what I don't understand, okay, so Tate sees Holly, he goes to check on her, he's freaking out and everything like that. A cop comes up and checks on Holly, and Tate sees the paraphernalia on the ground, and I guess he wanted to make sure that the cop didn't see it to, protect Holly. So he hides it, and eventually he puts it in his pocket. And I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't understand that. Now, at some point, Brady comes over, and he's like, what's going on? Is everything all right? And he pulls out the stuff in front of the cop, which made no sense whatsoever. Just to later tell them that, oh yeah, this was Holly stuff. What was the point of that? I don't get that. I can somewhat buy you want to protect her, make sure she didn't get in any trouble. But then you just wind up telling on her anyway. And now your fingerprints is on it, and it's gonna look like you're the one that sold her the stuff. No sense whatsoever. I literally sat there because I knew that the story was coming out. I knew Tate was going to be arrested and stuff like that. And I'm just like, well, how would that happen if she's the one that's pretty much holding the bag? So no, none of that made any sense. It really didn't. But it's like it's going to get dumber before it gets better. I'll sit there and say that. Now, while that's going on, you got Stephanie and Ava. Ava's not there blaming herself. She's like, listen, this is the second or third kid that pretty much OD'd off of the stuff that we out there not there putting in the streets. And Stephanie was like, well, I mean, we didn't sit there and shove it down our throat or anything like that. Let's not sit there and try to act like, we put guns to their heads and told them to use it. But he doesn't feel good about it. But he's being real about it. It's like, listen, we can't do anything about that. Like, we can't do anything about that. That's what we can't do anything about that. Now I know that Wendy and Trip are going to China, so I'm just like, what are you still doing here? I thought you was already going to China. Like, what happened? It would explain why she's still sitting there working for Clyde at this point. But I wonder if at this point Trip goes to China, will she continue working for him? I think maybe if Clyde sits there and says, well, listen, I know where your son's at, and I got people just in case, you think about not falling in line. Which I feel like is going to end up happening, because at this point, they just, they already gave Clyde way too much reach. Um, Alex eventually gets there with Teresa, and Alex is like, hey, listen, maybe your son is using, and she snaps at him. It's like, my son wouldn't do that, and he knows our history, and I was like, well, I get that, but your son's a teenager. What he tells you and what may be happening is two different things. She gets super defensive and pretty much tells him to leave. Um, so eventually he does. I think he probably should just exit himself from the whole scene in general and not even really say anything like that. But Alex has a history of putting his foot in his mouth. And no, I'm not gonna sit there and forget his arrogant ass comment that he said, and yeah, I don't care if he was in front of family. That was still some arrogant ish. Talking about, oh well, why we gotta sit there and, you know, send out these stupid little memos or whatever. Isn't the check just good enough? Like, really? Bro? You're so out of pocket for that? Hmm. Um so yeah, there's another one of those times where he stuck his foot in his mouth and he's just exit stage left. Eventually he does. Now Clyde does want to call in Stefan. Um, They're worried about what he's going to say and everything like that. I'm like, well, what can you really sit there and say? The stuff that y'all pushing out, it's clearly too strong and it's giving people ODs. Like, what do you, like, what are you calling for? Like, are you gonna blame it on them? You gonna break Gabby's other leg? Like, what are you gonna do? I don't understand. Paulina eventually tells Abe because about her health problems. And Abe is like, I want to be there for you. And she's like, all right, well, you can sit there and get out. And it was like, I'm sorry, what? But she doesn't want pity. She doesn't want pity. Then he says, I love you and everything like that. And I'm just like, part of it is supposed to be, and I get where they're going at, it's the we falling in love with someone. I can buy that. I can buy that. I don't, the thing is, we haven't really seen them spend a lot of time together, going on any sort of dates. The problem is, and no, actually, no, I can't buy that. Now I think about that. There's, him Smith saying that he loves her, but I'm just like, we haven't actually saw that romance. We haven't actually saw them going on dates and kind of reconnecting and stuff like that. So in a lot of ways, him saying it just kind of seems more like it's out of pocket. Like she doesn't want pity, and now you only Smith there saying you love her because she might have cancer. She might be going through something. So yeah, this kind of doesn't really work. Now after Nicole and AJ have loving in the afternoon, she gets a call. She goes down straight to the hospital, and while Tata's answering Ray's questions as far as like, yeah, Holly had the stuff, EJ comes in there, and as much as I love EJ, EJ comes in here and it's like, no, my stepdaughter wouldn't do that. Okay, EJ, sure. Let's blame it on Tate. I mean, his dumbass was stupid enough to pick up the stuff, have his fingerprints on it, and yeah, it's pretty much like you gave them all that he needed. You I can't, and I know people are gonna sit there and say, but he's a kid. He freaked. You know me, I don't do excuses. I'm very militant when it comes towards that. That was an asinine mistake that he made, and yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta sit there and say. Oh, and Harris was there. He was sitting there asking Ava and Stefan questions, and he wasn't sitting there trying to be nice about it with Ava. He was like, "Yo, listen, what happened?" He grows both of them, and I mean, he can't really answer too much of anything, but I feel like he's gonna get close. He's gonna get close to discovering the operation, and if you saw the previews, you kind of have an idea what wound up happening with Harris. If not, I'm not gonna say anything. You could just watch the previews. But I feel like that's pretty much about it. I can't think of anything else. But if I do, come to the live stream tonight. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be live streaming for an hour and a half, talking about Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, Born the Beautiful, and Young and the Restless. And yeah, I know. General Hospital didn't come on today, but we're gonna sit there and talk about that show as well. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna go. I'll see you in the next video.